We are recording today's session, so please note that your spoken, written comments, and image may be included in the recording. And you're welcome to rename your Zoom profile with your first name only if you like. And you're also welcome to use your video on, off as you wish. Any breakout rooms will not be recorded. Because we have back-to-back sessions, this presentation will end promptly at its end time. And if you would like to connect with Elizabeth or other participants after the session, you can email us at ur.ipa@rochester.edu. Elizabeth may also be sharing her contact information. And thank you for joining us. And I am now honored to welcome Elizabeth Parks, who is presenting
Okay, talk to you later.
beautiful, oops, beautiful, useful, true, and beyond. How do we keep change alive? All yours, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Missy. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. I think I want this. Let's see. Do we see a slide? Yes? Great. All right, I have a few monitors in front of me, so pardon me as I try to navigate these in our time together. So yes, thank you for sharing the title, Beautiful, Useful, True, and Beyond, Keeping Change Alive. This is introduction. So my name is Elizabeth Parks. I use she, her pronouns. I am currently on the lands of the Catawba and the Cherokee, colonially known as Boone, North Carolina. I am a white woman with a curly blonde, chin length hair and a burnt orange top with a little bow. I am in my office surrounded by folding doors behind me. And if you can see, I have a presentation partner today. This is Gigi, my little white dog in a red sweater. She'll be with us today. So my project is the bulk of what we'll be talking about. But I wanted to invite an opportunity. I would love to hear what's on your mind, what you're working about on. And so is there something you've done, something you're working on, or a dream you have for the future that you would like to share? So feel free to unmute and introduce yourself. Or drop into the chat if that feels more within your boundaries and capacity on this Sunday morning.
I've already introduced myself, but I can tell you that I'm working on my dissertation for my PhD. Ah.
My name's Trish, and I'll introduce myself. I am a retired high school English teacher who taught for 30 years, and I'm working on kind of reinventing myself as an artist and wondering how I can combine my art with community service and creating coherent, cohesive, supportive communities through textile practice, through theater. So that's
Beautiful. Thank you. Awesome. Well, feel free to drop in the chat at any point if you're feeling inspired and would like to let us know who you are. Um, all right. I need to, ooh, there we go. Get my bearings again on my many little screens. All right. So a bit of background. The production I'm focusing on is Beautiful, Useful, True. I'll cover why it's titled as such, but this was a devised eco-feminist production based on the life of Eunice Newton Foote and the Eunices of Appalachian State University, where I work, and the region. And the image we have here, this is the poster that was beautifully created for the production. a woman's hand with a Victorian lace sleeve, and she's holding up a science beaker with the planet Earth inside of it, and the title of the production is there. And the blurb here is brave, curious, practical, resilient. Eunice Newton Foote in 1856 made a strikingly precise discovery about what we now call the greenhouse effect. Her voice and her work were overlooked and lost until 2011. Beautiful, Useful, True is an account of the life of Eunice Newton Foote, woven together with the words and wisdom of the women of our Appalachian community. Questions explored were, what if we opened our ears, hearts, and minds to those disregarded? What lessons in resilience, fortitude, and community might be learned? What beauty, efficacy, and truth might emerge? And we had the loving support, both financial and emotional, of the Pathways to Resilience program at my university. So they are thanked here as well. So the roadmap for today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the production, the journey of that, and making that show, discuss plans for what I'm conceiving of in the future, and share a little bit from the development script for the future work. The thing I'm most excited about is inviting engagement around how do we keep change alive? So there's a lot of me knowing things in the first three bullet points here, and we get to the fourth one, and I'm entering into don't know mine. So I'm really excited about coming together and connecting and dreaming together for a little bit. I again need to find there we go. And then an invitation for collaboration. I'll share my information at the end of the presentation. So the production happened almost exactly a year ago. We opened, but I proposed this idea in 2023. And I knew I wanted to devise something. I knew I wanted something to focus on women. I knew I wanted to focus on climate action. And in reading All We Can Save, Truth, Courage, and Solutions for the Climate Crisis by the amazing Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson and Catherine K. Wilkinson, I want to honor their names. That's so important to do for women. They mention Eunice in the preface to the book, and I went, oh, that's it. Okay, I have my anchor. I have a focal point now, something to propel me forward. But I also didn't want this to just be what I call diorama theater, where we're just like, here's a story about a lady. Isn't this cool, right? And so I thought, how can I weave together the past, but what's happening in the present, and invite us to think about our future? Thank you for the thumbs up. And the title, so Eunice made this amazing discovery and wrote a paper, and it was accepted into the American Association for the Advancement of Science Conference in 1856. But she was not allowed to read her own work. Joseph Henry, the president of the organization, read it for her. And following the reading of her work, he offers this quote: "Science is of no country and no sex. The sphere of women embraces not only the beautiful and useful, but the true." And that feels like a little backhanded compliment in ways, but I really was drawn to those three words, beautiful, useful, and true. And that became the structure and the journey for us that was poetic and dramatic and practical. And so that's where we went. In dreaming this production, I was really struck by this image, which gives a visual representation of how much man-made mass exists on planet Earth that outweighs the natural biomass of our actual planet. And so from there, I wanted to investigate tensions of the anthropogenic and the naturogenic world, which led me to want to explore tensions between the ecosystems that we all face and ecosystems, internal, external, planetary. So some ways that we explored this further. My dramaturg turned me on to this beautiful book called Meander, Spiral, Explode, Design and Pattern and Narrative. So that we're not just thinking about the Aristotelian dramatic, climactic dramatic structure. And I was struck by the spiral component. So there's an image of a concrete spiral staircase and a little pool surrounding a tree. And prior to making this production, I spent time in Japan and went to this wonderful, immersive, interactive art installation. And part of that was being in nature and these vines and flowers that were coming down towards you. And I wanted to create that experience for the audience. So the idea was they would enter through these vomitoria enfolded in nature and enjoying all this greenery, and then they would be launched into the playing space where they're confronted by concrete and the anthropogenic mass of the world. And so that ended up looking like this. So Mike Helms, our amazing scenic designer, this was the world that the audience entered into after they encountered some of that nature. And we see some scorched earth in the center. Eunice here is at her easel. She was also a painter, which is amazing. And these are 6 of the 7 student actor devisers that were part of this production. All right. So I'm a big fan of Anne Bogart and viewpoints, and literally taking a page out of the viewpoints book. The question anchor structure is valuable to me. So the questions that were important were, what if we opened our ears, hearts, and minds to those disregarded? What hope for the planet and humanity might emerge? Eunice was our anchor, and that hurricane spiral radial structure was what we played with. We had also just come out of the wake of Hurricane Helene here in North Carolina, so that was very much in the ethos as well. Here we see an image of Eunice. This is from the experiment scene where Eunice is not only working on her experiment, but this is her daughter Mary next to her. So to bring this into the present, I got really ambitious and thought, who are the women on this campus that are amazing and doing climate action in all of the various fields? I have so many experts on campus. There must be amazing work happening. So I set out to interview 11 female faculty from 3 colleges and 9 departments. So we had art and physics and accounting and geography, etc. So I interviewed those women, and then they led me to 6 other women in the region, and 2 men. I want to celebrate the men who are really important here too. Dr. John Perlin is a physicist and a scholar on Eunice Newton Foote, and George Santucci was the head of the sustainability office here in Boone, and they were amazing, supportive contributors to this production. But a shout out to Western Youth Network and Blue Ridge Women in Agriculture and Mountain True. We landed on some amazing women from the region who are also invested in women advancing climate action. And so here's a list of the interview questions, but I just want to pop out 4 that were, I think, impactful and I wanted to draw our attention to. So I spent about an hour with each of those 21 people and had over 100 pages of interview transcripts to go through. But some of the questions I asked included, what answers about resilience, resourcefulness lie in what is beneath? And that came from Catherine Hayhoe's statement of eat lower on the food chain. And I was inspired to consider not only, her invitation to think about lower on the food chain, but think about expanding that to socio-political hierarchies as well. So who are we not listening to? Who are we perceiving as beneath us that might actually have the answers, as Eunice did? Who are the unsung heroes, unheard and marginalized or underrepresented voices in your research? Whoop, excuse me. Uh, if you had one environmental plea, what would that be? If you had one environmental victory to cheer, what would that be? What would your call for respect for people in the planet look and sound like? And I got lots of beautiful, amazing answers. So our story and structure, then what that looked like was I divided that beautiful, useful, true across 9 events. So we had her early years, we had the middle years of her experimentation, and then we had the later years. And interwoven into all of that were choral odes, which were drawn from the interviews that I had conducted. So my dramaturg and I scoured through all of that, all of that text. In rehearsal, I really wanted to create change in how we were building this piece together, and framing each rehearsal was really important so that we were building an ensemble and the students felt like their words mattered in the space. But that also they were able to debrief and de-roll and unpack and release what we had talked about and covered in that rehearsal was also really important. Celebrating what we had done, however small that might feel or seem, but celebration was really important, and then setting goals for the next day. And all 7 of the students, I don't think we had any performance majors. Many of them were not even theater majors. And so it was a wide swath of BA students who were really excited about this work or this topic. And I knew from the first week of rehearsal, I wanted to give them something to hang on to. So we built this tableau of all 9 of the events so that by the end of the week, they had something in their bodies about what it was going to feel like even 6 weeks later, something that they could go back to whenever it got messy and confusing and challenging. They had something visceral to hang on to, and we would tease out those tableau in various ways. So through improvisation or Margolis methods, physics-based devising and acting method, free writing and structured writing. And then the show itself, here's an image, I think from the dress rehearsal where we were practicing coming out for the talk back. It was really important. We kept the show under an hour so that we could have a talk back as well. I didn't want people to sit through 2 hours and then have to try to engage. So we kept the show short, and I invited the actors, myself, and then at least 2 of the people that I interviewed to come out and share in dialogue with the audience. And it was really exciting to watch how willing people were to engage in this work. It's so interesting. Only a year later, to feel the difference in the zeitgeist of how this kind of discourse is diminished and eclipsed by so many other things. But it was really exciting to go back and remember how much people were interested in talking about this kind of work. And then I wrote T here. So part of the Blue Ridge Women in Agriculture that we have in the area, they have an online food hub, which is like an online farmers market, which is so amazing. You can get tea and soap and eggs and goat cheese and you name it. And so one of the things you can purchase there from a regional producer is this wild Appalachia tea. And I thought, how cool would it be to have just been on this journey together as an audience, and then have a warm cup of wild Appalachia tea in the February and talk about what we had just experienced together. Um, we weren't allowed to have tea in the theater proper, so we had to forego that and have that afterwards. But we still had regional tea that was so lovely, and a way to lift up the earth and what the earth provides for us and nourishes us. So that's what we ended up doing, and that happened all by February of 2025. And then in April, my dramaturg was also creating the and part of a Climate Stories initiative here on campus. And so a way to keep that change alive, we wanted to do an excerpt from the show as part of the Climate Stories showcase. And alas, the students were unavailable. And I thought, well, I've actually taken a whole devised show and reset it on one person before. And I thought, I'll do it. So I rendered down an hour-long show to about 15 minutes of material, and in April shared that work. And that got me thinking about how I can keep this going and what kind of solo project could come out of this. Um, it might get administratively hairy to try to tour something with a student, although that's a possibility. But I thought, what about turning this into a solo performance and an outreach program? And then I was invited to even consider backing up further and thinking about what research I could keep doing, because it was so hard to write a show about a woman whom we had so little of her own voice. And what would it be like to go to there are some grants I've been researching to travel to locations in New York, including East Bloomfield, which is near Rochester, and to visit locations and historic sites of archives and history centers and museums where her work continues to be captured. So that's one layer. And then to take that into a solo production. And I think this is really important, honoring the student's work, that to ethically approach the great writing and contributions of those 7 devising students, is really important to me. So I want to make sure that I say that. And then to turn that into an outreach program. South Arts has Arts in the Communities grants. And so my dream is to connect again with those regional organizations and partner with them to take the solo program into schools and to help young women feel the excitement of science and the earth and what respect for the planet and people can feel like, and really to champion women to not only pursue science, but to pursue leadership in science to really enact change. So I'm going to share with you a little bit from the script that we generated. This is a much pared down script. You'll note that it still falls a little bit into here's some history for you, and then there's some beautiful writing. And I hope to tease that out more in the coming iterations. So we start with the the prologue, and I'll just tab through the sections as we go so you can listen and track where we are. What was she known for? What was she proud of? What did she care about? What was her work as a feminist? Did her husband support her? What were her feelings on motherhood? Was she torn between family and science? How did she do it? Did she do it alone? How did she want to be remembered? What drove her? What drives her? What drove her to science? In 1836, Eunice Newton began 2 years of study at the Troy Female Seminary. Here, she was able to study geology, chemistry, natural philosophy, mechanics, botany, and hydrostatics. Here, she learned additional research methods and laboratory testing procedures. Here, the school's founder, Emma Willard, boldly promoted the idea that women were capable of studying and succeeding in the same fields as men. Here, Elmira Lincoln Phelps invited her to be curious, to question and investigate her world. We will now consider some of the most important laws of chemical affinity. What are some of the explanations already given to help us understand them? Carbonic acid gas is heavier than atmospheric air, extinguishes flame, and destroys life when breathed. I know that a kettle of burning coals is frequently set in a closed bedroom on a cold night. Carbonic acid gas is formed by the union of the charcoal with the oxygen of the atmosphere, which frequently destroys life. I teach nature. I get to teach the natural world. The study of nature is highly interesting and useful, but we have to start with the power and beauty of things. We have to start when the students are small and when they are still in awe of things, when they still believe butterflies are amazing. Aren't butterflies amazing? Really, it should start in elementary school. We should be teaching children how beautiful birds are, because when they believe how beautiful birds are, the rest just falls into place. The world is inherently beautiful. Everyone has beauty inside of them and capacity to share that beauty with others. Nature teaches us that change will happen in time. The river will flow and eventually dam, and the sapling will grow into a shelter for shade. It teaches us that we are so small in the reality of it all, that the world seems to weigh down on us. The seasons keep changing. Everything is so interconnected. There are patterns in nature, and as we are a part of nature, we can see those patterns reflected in our lives. Cycles, seasons, the tides. Eunice and her husband, Elisha, had 2 daughters. And balancing home life and research, Eunice continues to question and investigate nature. At this time, no one in the scientific community had yet asked, how do we break up the atmosphere and test the gases of which it is composed? No one had yet asked, how do we measure the temperatures of those gases? In 1856, in Albany, New York, Eunice's husband Elisha shares his paper at the American Association for the Advancement of Science conference. Eunice's paper is also shared, but she was not allowed to read her own paper. Her husband's mentor, Joseph Henry, reads her paper in order to receive the credit for women entering into science. Eunice Newton Foote is the first woman to have a paper read at a major scientific meeting. She's the first woman to have a paper published in the American Journal of Arts and Sciences. She is the only woman to be published in a serious physics journal until Marie Curie. Thank you, gentlemen of science. It is a pleasure to be here. So great has been the achievement of science in the past century. If I were to highlight all of your scientific discoveries, my allotted time would not suffice. I now share with you Miss Elisha Foote's paper, Circumstances Affecting the Heat of the Sun's Rays. The high temperature of moist air has frequently been observed. Who has not experienced the burning heat of the sun that proceeds from a summer shower? The isothermal lines will, I think, be found to be much affected by the different degrees of moisture in different places. Thirdly, the highest effect of the sun's rays is found to be in carbonic acid gas. One of the receivers was filled with it, the other with common air, and the other was as follows. The receiver containing the gas itself became much heated, and once being removed, it was many times as long in cooling. An atmosphere of that gas would give to our Earth high temperatures. And if, as some suppose, at one period in our history, the air had mixed with a larger portion than at present, an increased temperature from its action as well as from increased weight must necessarily result. Science was a no country and no sex. The sphere of women embraces not only the beautiful and useful, but the true. In 1857, John Tyndall, a physicist from Ireland, directed his attention to radiant heat and gas. In 1859, he published his initial discoveries, and in 1861, he published his full paper on the absorption and radiation of heat by gases and vapors. In his publication, he gave credit to Matthias Pouillet, but didn't mention Foote. Eunice Newton Foote was never in the equation. She was never considered for recognition, and her work was lost to time. Any further documents by Eunice Newton Foote were destroyed in 1865 when a devastating fire burned the Smithsonian Castle to the ground. We can only do what I can. Maybe I can't affect change on a large scale. Maybe I can't change everyone's minds, but in my own home, I can. In my community, I can. I can stand with friends as we demand a mile and are given an inch. It will be one less inch my girls will have to fight for. Are success and credit useful? Tyndall's research eclipsed mine. Scientists will look to his work in the future. They say mimicry is flattery, but it hurts not to own my ideas. At least I know they were good enough to be stolen. I am useful here in my work. No matter how small, I will be seen. I know my work will be useful. I know I will be useful. It's the least I can do. After Elisha's death and Eunice's daughters, Eunice retreats to her daughter's home in 1883. Eunice split her time between Brooklyn and Massachusetts, and she died shortly after Elijah in 1888, and she's buried in Brooklyn. She was many people to many things. We can't respect something we don't love. And we can't love what we don't have a lot of connection with. Connection is critical. There's power in numbers. We are part of the solution. The people before us had a responsibility to us. We're terrible at thinking ahead. A generation, 2 generations. What is the impact of the decisions I'm making on 7 generations from now? What a beautiful thing to think about. Can we get it right for the next generation? When I look to the past, it often helps me predict the future. I can also reverse it, and the present becomes my key to the past. Time always brings me back to the same spot. I sped through my life looking for the next thing, the next idea, the next discovery, the next victory, but victory was already right in front of me. Victory is around me. Nature taught me that. I already have what I need right here. The story is not finished. We are the ending to the story. We are the epilogue. We must continue the conversation. The only way to honor Eunice is to talk about her. And so that is a short romp through the journey that we had. So now engaging in collaborative discussion. So what is change? There's an article on change in the arts through leadership, and it offers us that social change can raise awareness, make a statement, generate dialogue, influence others, and bring people together for collective action. So those are some bullet points I thought could support us as we engage in this. So I'll share the questions here in the chat for us as well. So while creating a production can be meaningful, and it's, even if you create conversation after the show, my first question is, how do we keep conversation alive? What does conversation look like? I'll stop sharing so that we can uh, see each other. And I see we're a few shorter, and that's all right. Feel free to, oh, there's been some chat things. Amazing. Someone's been to the Team Lab Planets. Wonderful. Cool. I know it can feel overwhelming maybe to be the only attendee at a session, and so I want to respect that. Um, but we're all here, and so yeah, I'm really curious, like how do we keep conversation going?
Right. I first just want to say that it occurs to me that just how you like this is important work to share. And so here you have this opportunity, the students aren't available, so you shift gears, you're like, no, I'm going to make this happen. And it feels to me like that is also a very kind of female perspective, actually, like I'm going to do this myself. If no one can help me, I'm going to do it. If you want something done, you do it yourself kind of thing, right? And so I'm just really impressed by that. And I also loved how you had this, like how you carried us through the way that you structured your piece, because particularly when you're synthesizing, that can be really hard to keep on track. And so that was really useful to me to see like how you might do that, how you might make it more succinct. Um, and then in terms of like thinking about change, I mean, I recently saw I don't want to take up all the space, so Lewis, please turn on your microphone at any point if you want to talk. But I recently saw a play, a one-woman play about the sister of Mozart, and how she also was a very incredible musician and composer, and how nobody knows that because she's female, basically, right? So it's a very kind of parallel story, but like, and they're using theater to get the word out, and like, I mean, it's just so anyway, I think that is change, and it's in and of itself, right? That people now are recognizing and uncovering and digging up these sort of lost documents and this lost history because yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I could go on and on, right? But I guess I'll stop there.
That's amazing. That has me landing on even how powerful theater is because we are creating conversation just by the production itself. We're gathering, mass individuals in one place to experience this and the success of even if people go, oh, that's change. Yeah. And to say, oh yeah, I saw this production about Mozart's sister. Yeah.
Right, right. And I know you were mentioning places near here that you might be able to share the work, and Seneca Falls was on your original the timeline there in the beginning and part of her history. And there's a women's museum in Seneca Falls. Like that would be an amazing place also to share the work.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not too far from us. It's about an hour, so hour and a half maybe. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I was looking at, I just had to put together this whole budget for a grant and looking at traveling to Albany for the state archives and Saratoga Springs,
Mhm.
and their Saratoga County History Center, and then heading out to East Bloomfield
Uh-huh, exactly.
and Seneca Falls. Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
it's right in between those, really. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's en route. At least stop by, right? See it. But I mean, I think it'd be worth, I don't know. I don't have any personal context there, but I know the Women's Museum is there and they would be the place to start, I think.
Ah,
Yeah.
beautiful. And that leads to, I think these questions are related, but the first one was really on how do we create change as conversation? And the second question in our limited time is change as action. Um, yeah. how do we continue creating change as action?
Mhm. Mhm. I mean, I think this is action, right? I mean,
Mm,
right? Like having
mhm.
conversations is action, like bringing these hidden truths to attention is action, right?
Mm.
Isn't that the name of the movie? No, what was that movie called?
Oh, hidden figures.
Hidden Figures, right? Exactly. Like,
Mhm.
right? That's also action, right?
Mm,
It's like,
mm,
yeah, because there's still so much misogyny that I think like it's still important to point out that there are amazing contributions from women. Like, I don't, that seems so archaic, but it's actually true. It still needs to be pointed out. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah. Um,
Oh,
yeah.
Lewis put something in the chat. I have a general question. What do you think about getting people more interested in the arts when people's attentions are very divided and there is not much social government support for the arts?
This is me processing that very heavy question, but a necessary one. Thank you for that, Lewis.
Mhm.
I'm in that moment right now looking at trying to get grants to fund these future stages of the process, and arts funding has dried up, and certainly for these particular causes, um, funding is continuing to diminish.
Mhm.
I mean, I think theater is can heal that divide. Bringing people together might be a way. One thing I'm looking at is that serves me here is that she was an American, so finding something that can speak to what is being funded right now, and so how can we forward the voice of an American scientist? Perhaps might be the route that I need to pursue. And then the question becomes, how much of the original message do I how do I still honor what I want to be forwarding and try to jump through the hoops of what is available to me?
Mhm.
Again, I'm in don't know mind.
Mhm.
Um,
I mean, to me,
it-
it's crucial, right? Because like the arts are where we can celebrate people, like celebrate difference, so like bring out the beauty in things that we're not seeing because we are so focused and necessarily focused on problems and issues and controversies and all that kind of stuff. And of course the arts can focus on that too, but it can do both of those things, right? It gives us this place to, like you said, come together, but also to escape a little bit sometimes and like yeah, and that can be healing or at least balancing. I don't know. I mean, obviously I'm from an arts perspective, but it just seems about to be about quality of life, you know? Yeah. Hmm.
I see we're at our time, so I want to respect that. Um, yes, more. Yes, Molly is presenting next. I'm excited about that. I'm going to go back and share screen so that I can take us to my cursor and my three monitors. I'm moving forward. Okay, so as promised, here's my information. The QR code will take you to, I think, my email, which I don't have up there, silly me. Um,
Well, it's
so
on your website, right?
yes, I do have a website. Yes, all of that. So thank you for engaging in discourse around change. And thank you, Missy, for
Thank you.
facilitating.
Yeah, thank you so much. And congratulations on this work. I hope it has a long life.
Thank you. Me too.